Good day, everyone. This presentation will briefly review strategies interest groups can use to better link citizens with their elected leaders. Interest groups do help link us to our elected leaders in government. Consider public policy as part of this. Now, an interest group strategy simply reflects that particular group's overall plan. That could be to pass or defeat a proposed law. It can also include trying to elect a person into office or perhaps defeat that person from getting reelected. So an interest group will have a strategy. The tactics reflect the specific actions that an interest group undertakes to implement a particular strategy. So as we talk about interest groups, we can discuss inside and outside strategies. Inside strategies emphasize direct personal encounters with public officials, also known as direct lobbying. This reflects the contact between actual interest group staff, it could be paid staff, it could be volunteers for the organization, or actual citizens, people like you or I who may volunteer our time to use our time and resources to actually communicate it with our own elected officials, whether that's in the nation's capital, inside a Capitol building, whether it's a nation or a state capital, or it could be in the home district, in the part of the state where a resident lives, where a citizen lives and participates with their regular life. In some territory, our elected officials are in their home districts. Other times they're at the capital. So that inside strategy is that personal contact, that direct lobbying, where members can communicate their wants and desires and needs from government. So we're looking at interest group strategies, whether they're inside, what's referred to as the inside game, or the outside game. And the outside game involves outside strategies, and this is where the interest groups will use public opinion, public pressure to try to influence the elected officials to do that which the interest group wants it to do, him or her. So this is referred to as indirect lobbying, whereas it's not that personal contact that was being referenced a minute ago. Digital activism, the use of social media, is one of these kinds of tactics that are used to generate outside pressure to try to provide this indirect influence onto our elected officials so that they will move in the direction a particular interest group wants the elected officials to move in. They want public policy to go in a certain direction. And so they can use social media, what's referred to as digital activism, the use of Facebook, Twitter, perhaps YouTube when videos go viral. These are ways to try to generate publicity, make issues visible so that elected leaders have to pay attention to them. So on the screen, there's an image of the hashtag #MeToo movement icon that has come into popular usage in the recent age, addressing concerns dealing with sexual harassment and sexual assault due to recent events. Other ways of using public pressure as a lobbying technique for interest groups. So on the screen, it's titled Outside Strategy. Generate public pressure - February 2018 Town Hall, carried by CNN News. There's an image of United States Senator Marco Rubio on the screen, who's responding to a question from a high school student. This followed a shooting where there were many deaths in Florida. So this was a public, very visible media event where those who were seeking to address the issue of gun violence, perhaps some sort of gun reform. This is one way, again, to use outside pressure to raise visibility of an issue to direct public policy. So there's the image on the screen. To the left of the image, again, is the word digital activism. but also below that, boycotting and boycotting. These two terms actually came up in prior reading, but they're ways as consumers. And if you're an interest group member, you could also be a consumer, where you can use your public, your dollars, your private dollars, to try to generate more public pressure as you buy from certain companies that provide products or services that you support, or you keep your dollars from those companies, right? So you boycott companies or you support those companies. So you can boycott or boycott certain companies to try to reward them or punish them as a way to generate public pressure on policies those companies may be using that you agree or disagree with, or services that are provided, products that are provided that maybe it might use some sort of a sweatshop labor that you disagree with. Again, these are ways that you can generate public pressure and raise visibility of issues. It's not the direct lobbying, right? You're not communicating with the elected official and his or her staff directly. It's another way to try to influence public policy. And below that, next to the image, there is the phrase letter campaigns to elected officials. Whether it's the old actual writing of a letter, using a stamp and sending it to your elected officials, or using email, it's a way, again, to generate public pressure on issues. It's an indirect way of communicating with the policymakers. With these outside strategies, as you go through and complete your reading, consider how interest groups and lobbyists who are hired by the interest groups help members fulfill their roles as citizens. So again, interest groups are linkage organizations. They help provide this bridge between us, voters, participants in a civic life, and those responsible for making public policy, our elected leaders. And one of the ways that they do this is the interest groups provide us their services as the watchdog, if you will. That is, an interest group is paying attention to politics. One of the reasons often cited for not participating is voters say, we don't have time, or it's confusing, I don't understand the process. Well, the interest groups may hire lobbyists to pay attention for us, and others who understand the process and are paid for their time to pay attention, so that when bills are proposed that may harm your group's interest, the watchdog is paying attention, right? So the hired lobbyist or the interest group, to use the National Rifle Association as an example, if there's a proposed bill that's going to raise a tax on a round of ammunition, not a box of ammunition, but a round, that group wants its membership to know. And so that watchdog is going to be alerting its members to what's going on in the nation's capital. So as I put up 3 different functions that interest groups provide for its members, think about the combined effect of all 3 of these to help the interest group activate its membership to participating on issues that are important to that membership. So the interest group provides and fulfills this watchdog role, right? There's a watchdog function. Part of that watchdog function results in the education of the membership by communicating with the members, whether it's text messages, email alerts and updates, an active and very current website. These are ways using technology, which may also incorporate social media, to keep the membership both activated and educated about issues important to that particular membership. In a democracy, we need to understand as citizens that our form of government goes in both directions. It's a two-way street. Voters need to communicate with the elected officials, as well as the elected officials need to be communicating with the voters, right? It takes effort from both sides. Interest groups help provide that flow of communication between the two. One activity that many interest groups undertake annually is they rate the legislators. They score the legislators based upon the votes that are actually taken on bills that are important to the particular interest group. And these scorecards or report cards are created by the interest group themselves. And so only the bills or the votes that are taken that are most important to that particular interest group are paid attention to and part of their own scorecard or their own report card. And then this report card is provided to all the members so that when it's time to vote or support particular candidates in an upcoming campaign, voters again have a cue. They have something to use to combat that idea that, well, I'm not really following politics. I don't have time. I don't know what I'm voting on. If you're a member of the National Rifle Association or the Sierra Club or some group that is important to you that you've identified, nobody else but you, there's a report card that group may provide that shows you how your current elected office holders are doing in office. So consider all of these different strategies and tactics that interest groups may utilize. They don't use them all. Interest groups will decide what's most effective for them based upon their strategy and goals of what they want to achieve at any given moment in any given year. I'll follow up with another brief presentation on these report cards. Look for that.